Macy's one-day sale is going on now with great deals of the day to get prepped for the spring season. Like 40% off wardrobe refreshes from Style & Co. and 40% off the perfect bags and wallets to complete your look. Plus, get 50 to 60% off kitchen and dining essentials from Hotel Collection, Oak, The Cellar, and more. Star Rewards members earn rewards even faster during Macy's Star Money bonus days. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool.
Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
Hey, BTV buddies, I've got Ariel Julie on the show today. Ariel's a theater kid turned comedian, and she's proof that the rules of comedy are merely a suggestion. At 3 years in, she's already headlined and put out a YouTube special called Weiner Patrol. Her style of humor is bold and audacious, yet endearing at the same time. Ariel is a great example of not waiting for the industry to find you by making your own stuff happen. Take a listen to this one. It's a good one. Ariel Julie. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Did I pronounce that right, Ariel?
Yeah, you
Excellent.
actually did. It's amazing.
I
Usually
nailed
people
it.
think, but
I
you got
nailed it.
You
So,
nailed it.
so I watched the special. I want to get to that a little bit later, but I do want to talk about your first headlining gig. That was at the Market Lounge in Valpo, right?
Yes, it was. That was in October 2020.
Cool. And how did you get connected with Jeff?
Jeff posted in one of the Chicago comedy Facebook groups very soon after the pandemic was like well underway. Like this might have been maybe May or June
Uh-huh.
of 2020. And I had quite honestly been doing comedy for barely a year.
Yeah.
So like he posted like, hey, submit a clip, and we'll see what happens. So I had like one good clip from an open mic. And it had some jokes. It had a song, and I was like, "Okay, I'll send it to him." And he asked for like more than just a clip. Like he was like, "Send me a clip. Tell me like what's your favorite this or what's your favorite that or whatever." So I was like, "Okay." So I responded to all his things. I sent the clip, and I also was like, "I'll bake you cookies if if you book me." Which is so silly, but it was like the pandemic, so I was baking a lot.
Yeah.
So it all made sense. But he booked me to like have like a 10 or 15 minute spot. And it was the longest I'd ever done at that point. And I did it and it went well. And he was like, "Oh, I have to have you headline." And I was like, what? What? So that's insane. And so that was like July. I did the first spot. And then he had me back in October to headline. And then that was 2 half-hour shows, which was the longest that I'd ever done. It was the first time I'd ever headlined. It was, I was barely a year in. I was maybe a year and 2 months in. So it was like, I felt like a lot of imposter syndrome. Like I shouldn't be here. This
Right.
is crazy that I'm doing this. But it was so much fun. I mean, everyone was super nice and it was a great time. And then I've just been at the Market Lounge. I feel like I'm there every month ever
Yeah.
since.
You
Yeah,
know,
I'm there.
it's funny. I talked to you're probably, I guess, my 131st interview or something like that since I started this. And a lot of the people I talk to, so I talk to both old school and, new school comedians, and, the old school comedians are like, you have to have all these things in place before you do this. Before you do 15, you have to have 30. And then I talk to a lot of folks that are like medium school to new school, so they've been around for 5-10 years or 2 years or whatever, and a lot of them, they say that the thing that really jump started both their performance and their writing was the fact that they got put into situations that they weren't quite ready for, and that just puts everything on steroids, and you just really go for it, and sometimes it succeeds and sometimes it fails, but it takes you to that next level quicker. Does that seem like that's the story for you?
100%. Like there was another show that I did for Jeff. It was the Type 5 showcase where he booked 5 people who had all of us headlined at Market at that point. So it's a show of headliners. And some of the people on that show, everyone on that show was great, but like there were people on that show that had gotten standing ovations there, like people I admire, people from Chicago, like people that are amazing, and it was, again, 2 shows, an 8 p.m. and a 10:30. So I walk in for the 8 p.m. and the first thing Jeff says to me is, "You're going up last." And I was like, "What? Why?" Like we were all doing the same amount of time. So it's not like I was like headlining, like it's a showcase,
Right.
but I was like, "Why would you put me up last? Like there's so many great other people like on this. What are you talking about? And he was like, "Well, like the person that you were thinking was probably going to go up last was another comedian, and she was having a medical moment, like she was, not feeling 100% that night." So he was like, "I'm not even sure she'll make it to the second show." So, so that was kind of the logic there. And I was like, I mean, that makes sense, but there's still 3 other killers on the lineup. So I did it, I went up last, and it was good. I had a good set. The first show was good. And then the second show, I realized, oh, that was really smart of you to put me up last, because by midnight or whenever it was, I ended up actually going up. I was probably the only sober person because I don't really drink. So it's like, oh, you put me up last because by midnight, I'm going to be the only one who like will be able to do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. But it was great. And it was a fun set. I still have clips from that set. I was loose. I was like just doing crowd work. That was great. That was a great show.
So both for that first time that you went up, that you felt you weren't quite ready for 15, and then when you headline, what did you do to get ready? I mean, I know you're freaking out because that's just what you do, but what did you do to get ready to put it out there?
I don't remember. I probably went to nights. I mean, this was like two years ago. I probably went to a lot of mics, or as many as I could, given the pandemic. So there was like, outdoor stuff, and so it was limited compared to what it is now, and what it was before, certainly. But I was a musical comic when I started, and I don't really do that so much anymore. But as you saw in Weiner Patrol in the special, that was like I did all of the songs.
Yeah.
Because at that time I was like, I'm stepping away from the ukulele, I'm stepping away from singing and all of that. And people were like, "Oh, but we love the songs." And I was like, "All right, well, let me do an hour and let me just do all the material I have so far, including all of the songs." And then just like, and now there it is, and it's there, and you can watch it whenever you want. But I don't really do that very much anymore. So with the first time I headlined at Market, I knew that I had like an arsenal of maybe 5 or 6 songs, and I knew how long they were. So I was like, yeah, 30 minutes, but like half of that could just be songs. So I really only need 15 minutes of material, which is just 3 to 4 open mic sets. So it was more doable. Like it seemed reasonable. And also I was doing this thing where at the end of the night, I would take suggestions from the audience and make up a song. off the top of my head because I did improv many, many years ago, like high school and early college. So I was like, oh, I have this skill, like I could do that. And it's fun. The audience likes it. It's kind of like crowd work, but it's, it's like a magic trick, they like it. So I was able to kind of fill time doing that. And I've watched parts of some of those early longer sets. And I was like, yeah, I'm clearly nervous. I'm clearly filling time. I'm clearly like not struggling, but definitely like, what do I do next? What do I do next? Have I hit my time? Have I hit my time? Like I can see it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's funny. The funny thing is Jeff was one of the first people I interviewed for this show, and I had heard about him from somebody else and said that, Jeff's really smart. What he's doing at the Market Lounge is really smart. So I talked to him, and then I think he called me a couple weeks later and wanted me to do a show it was probably maybe his fifth or sixth show that he had done there. And I said yes. And it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months away. And I got a call from my daughter, and she said that she'd like for my wife and I to go visit my grandson, because we just had the one grandson at the time, and it was that weekend. So I didn't want to just call him and say I couldn't do it. So I got a sub, and I don't know if you've met Dean Jernigan, but Dean.
I love Dean.
Yeah, so yeah. Dean was my sub, so I got him all, and that Jeff makes sure that everybody gets paid when they do it, and it's everything's on the up and up with Jeff, and I knew that was going to be the case for Dean, and I knew Dean was going to be a really good fit for the show that he was doing. So Jeff was pissed. I said, hey, I just can't do it, but I got a guy. And he didn't know Dean at the time. He said, well, fuck it, I'll go ahead and send him. And so Dean went up and just totally killed. And Jeff was like, yeah, I don't need you anymore. So I've never even met Jeff in person. So I never went to the Market Lounge or anything like that. It just didn't ever come up. But he was very happy that I brought Dean, and Dean's been there like a million times since then. So at least I did something good for somebody.
Yeah, no, I performed with Dean a bunch. I had him on my goofy little bar show that I do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah, Dean's cool. The story I have about Dean is that he showed up at the drop back when it was over on Sample by the jail, and he's just talking to all these comedians. It's the first time I saw him, and all these comedians are really young. I'm old. And Dean is not as old as me, but he was older than all of them. And it just looked to me like he was trying to get them to go back in his van or something like that. So I stepped in. And I was like, who the hell are you? And why are you talking to all these young comedians?
There's stage time in my van. You want to come in? Stage in your van? Yeah. I'll do it.
Yeah. So that was how I met him. But then we ended up, he ended up being funny when he went up, and turned out he was really in radio and really, really a comedian. And so it was kind of a weird meeting, mostly because I was very protective of my comedian friends, and but everything turned out great. But it's kind of a funny story. So not only do you throw yourself into the headlining stuff fairly early into the game, but you put the special out earlier this year, and it's really good. I mean, I'll tell you, I wasn't expecting much, because you're so young, you're so new into it. I wasn't expecting much, but I did like the musical stuff. I'm not a musical comedian type of guy. That usually doesn't work for me. But the way you did it, you didn't like do a million songs and then do a couple jokes. You did a lot of jokes and then did a song and then did more jokes. And I thought the way you did it was really good. And I rewatched it after I found out that we lost Judy Tenuta, and I see some parallels there, and not. I mean, you don't have the exact same energy, but you've got the same boldness up there. Did you ever watch Judy?
I've seen some stuff, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and she was somebody I was trying to get on the show actually, and that's not going to happen anymore. But I was always a big fan of hers, and I just like that energy and really the boldness, and I'm wondering where that came from. I did read a snippet about you that you were like a theater kid and then you got into stand-up. So how did that all happen, and where did you get the premise of your act?
Where did you read that?
I don't know. Is that not right?
It's right. I'm just like, where is this information?
Well,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I do a lot of internet stalking when I have a guest on, just so I'm ready.
No, you nailed it. Well, I don't know. I don't know where the boldness came from. I've never been shy, certainly. I did like acting and drama camp and all of that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I've always been like performing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I started doing improv when I was 14 at the Improv Playhouse in Libertyville. Shout out to David Stewart. And I was in a class with Pippa Sue, who later went on to be the original Eliza Schuyler in Hamilton. She went to Libertyville and went to Vernon Hills, so I actually knew her. It was a cool group of people. And I don't know, I always liked being the center of attention, and I liked, making people laugh. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in college, I did the improv troupe at Bradley University called Barbecue Kitten. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I sort of put that down. I did major in theater, but I was a production person. I was a stage manager. So I was like a very behind the scenes, very organized, I want to be in charge. I want to tell people what to do kind of a person. So I definitely was a good fit for that role, even though it wasn't my favorite thing to do. I was good at it. And then I had a number of jobs for many years throughout my 20s. I didn't find stand-up until I was 29, and I was in grad school. So I don't know. Your question, where does the boldness come from?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just sort of happened. Yes, since I was a little kid, I've just been like that. And then your question about where my material comes from was that?
Yeah.
I mean, as you saw in the special, it's personal. It's all stuff that happened to me or stuff that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. I was just telling a friend, like, I actually really want to start writing new stuff. I really want to chuck most of my material at this point, because I feel like I talk about kind of 4 quadrants of my life. And one of them is just like my sexuality and people I've dated, being Jewish, a little bit about being a speech pathologist, which is like my job in real life. And then the 4th one would be my relationship. My boyfriend, I talk about that on stage too. So it's like I sort of cover these 4 topics. I feel like I very rarely talk about something that's not one of those 4 things or directly related to one of those 4 things. And that's fine. And that's a good place to start with material, especially for anybody who's watching this who is just starting out. Starting out with things that have actually happened to you, things that, you deal with on a day-to-day basis, your family, your friends, your relationships, like it's all true. And there's comedy and everything. So that's where I started. But, I watch the greats. I watch, amazing comedians on Netflix and Amazon, and I listen to all their podcasts and everything. And I'm like, how do I just see the world and just see something just out of the corner of my eye and go, oh, that's crazy that that's happening. And then write a bit about it. Like that eludes me a little bit. So for now, all of my material is pretty personal or directly related to like something that actually happened to me. If that. makes sense.
Yeah, and that definitely comes through. And I know that when we're on stage, we are trying to enhance one part of our personality so that, there's a strong persona up there. But I felt like with you, you're just bringing you up there. You're not really enhancing anything so much other than just stating what's happened in your life and why it is funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
the gist.
Yeah.
You got it.
And I think that's what made it more natural. And it, even though there is strong sexual content, there's strong content about your family and being Jewish, just like you said, all that stuff's there, but it just feels like you're almost having a conversation with somebody at the bar.
Yeah.
And you're trading stories about your life. And I guess that's what drew me in. And that is not normal. That's not what you usually see from a newer comedian. And that's what impressed me about your special. And that's why I wanted to bring you on the show.
Thank you. And I'll say, I say this to people a lot. Like, technically, at this time, like it's October 2022. Technically, I'm 3 years and some change into stand-up.
Uh-huh.
But I've always been like, I've always talked like that. I've always told stories or told jokes or whatever. So I say to people, like, I've been doing comedy for my whole life. I just picked up a microphone 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So like, yeah, storytelling, all of that. I've always, been the center of attention at a party, like telling a story and making somebody laugh.
Uh-huh.
There are jokes that I wrote when I was, blogging like 6 years ago that I ended up using in my stand-up. And yeah, so it's always kind of been there. And I appreciate that you felt like it was conversational, because that's sort of what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say about Weiner Patrol specifically, when I made that, I was not at all like, I'm going to record an album. I'm going to film a special.
Uh-huh.
That is not what the intention behind that was. It was completely like, I'm getting ready to chuck this material. I'm getting ready to chuck the songs, and also let me see if I have an hour. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Do I have an hour? I feel like I have an hour, but I've never done that much time. Let me just see. And so the Lincoln Lodge in Chicago, they're an amazing organization that is just a full theater space dedicated to comedy. They're amazing people that work there. I'm there every week. They're the best. They're just the best. And so that room that I filmed in was their smallest room, and it was a very reasonable price to rent for the hour. So when I talked to them about this, I was like, well, I'm thinking about, doing just like an hour of material. They're like, oh, here's the cost to rent the room. I'm like, oh, that's super doable. Okay. So I was coming at it like, I'm just going to do an hour. Come see me do an hour.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't like, see me record my album, see me do a special. It was just, see me do an hour. Tickets were like $5. Most of my friends came. My sister came. Like,
Uh-huh.
it was cool. And then a friend of mine was like, oh, I'll film it for you. Cause it's like, oh, you might as well have like a good camera, not just like your phone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, we'll film it. And he even asked me, like, do you want 2 camera angles? And I was like, no, like, why? So as you saw, it's a whole hour at just one camera angle.
Uh-huh.
And that's a little bit of a regret for sure. But, I wasn't like trying to film a special. I was just like, yeah, the best case scenario, the room is full enough, the jokes do well, I'll be able to cut this hour up into clips
Right.
that I can then submit to like festivals and, whatever, which I have done.
Uh-huh.
So it sort of was just like a giant accident. But once it was finished and my friend, edited it, and there was, this good production quality with like every joke did well because it was a room full of my friends.
Right.
There were a couple strangers. There were a couple strangers. I did get, I think, 5 or 6 complete strangers in there. People. But then, yeah, it was my friends and comics, and it was, it was easy. It's like a 50 seat room, it
Yeah.
wasn't a crazy amount of people. So yeah, so once I filmed it, I was like, oh, this is like a whole thing. And people were like, well, just post the whole thing. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that. That's crazy. But obviously I did it, I posted it. So now it's there. And my hope for it is that I look back on it 5 years from now and just cringe and just go, I can't believe I did that. That was stupid. I was like 2.5 years into comedy. That's insane that I did that at all. Yeah. But
That
but there it is. It's
that
there.
that's actually what impressed me, and I keep going back to boldness. Just the thing is throw it out there, and the other thing is I think if you would have had two camera angles, that might have taken away from the homegrown feel of it, and I kind of like the way it sits, and
Okay.
and it's just I'm really getting into that now. Some of these that are even self-produced are overproduced sometimes, and you got the two camera angles, and everybody's mic'd exactly properly, and all that kind of stuff, and then they're switching back and forth a little bit too much, and it just I think it sometimes takes away from the fact that, hey, I'm just putting something out here, and I want to see what people think. And yeah, I guess I thought that the way you presented it was perfect for what you wanted to present.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is my cat. This
Hi,
is
kitty
Wilma.
cat.
He's decided to join us for this interview. She's a big fan of comedy. She's actually my biggest critic. Yeah, I appreciate that. I again, there was very little intentionality
Uh-huh.
behind Weiner Patrol other than I have all this material. Let's just get it out there and see what happens. But yeah, a lot of people have come up to me and said, I watched it. I watched your special. It was funny. And I sort of avoided watching it for a good 6 or 7 months. And then I got a little high a couple nights ago and actually rewatched not the whole thing. I kind of skipped around and I watched parts of it. And I was like, oh yeah, why don't I do that joke anymore? That was actually a pretty good
Yeah.
joke. Okay. All right. That was not that bad. I don't like that all the songs sound the same because it's the same four chords because I am not a professional
Yeah.
ukuleleist.
Yeah.
But I also forgot that I had addressed that in the special
Yeah.
or in the hour. I like totally because I'm like watching it like, oh my God, all these songs sound the same. Like, what
Uh-huh.
are you doing? This is horrible. And then it got to the end, and I even say like, "Yeah, did you like how I used the same four chords?" And you're like, "Did you do that?" "Yeah, I did." And I'm like, "Oh, well, at least I addressed it."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Okay.
and it just seems like you're pretty quick on your feet. And I'm sure the improv stuff happened, but like when you spilled the water, you turned,
Okay.
you're like, okay, we're going to edit this, but you didn't edit it because you had really good riffs off of it. So
Yeah,
I thought that was cool. Do you ever get into situations where, stuff happens, especially in bar shows and stuff like that, stuff happens. Do you feel like you are always pretty fast on your feet for that type of stuff?
yeah. I just did a show last night in Rockford at a pizza parlor.
Uh-huh.
And I was headlining, and the other three comics on there were three great friends of mine, very funny guys in Chicago. And it was another situation where I'm like, why am I headlining? Like, what
Yeah.
are we doing? Like, we're all the same. We're at the same level. So what are we doing? But there was heckling, there was people talking, it's a restaurant. It's like a comedy show in a restaurant, like a
Right.
small restaurant. There couldn't have been more than 30 people there. And I had to I was definitely struggling a little bit for the first part of the set because I'm trying to like tell jokes and sort of involve them and sort of, keep the room, entertained and not too offended, but like have their attention. And so there was definitely a little bit of a struggle. And then there was like this table kind of having their own little conversation. So I just started like talking to the table next to them. I was like, well, do you think they're having a business meeting? What do you think they're talking about? And then I got the whole room involved in like guessing what they were talking about until finally they're paying attention. They're like, what are you talking about us? I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? Like, we want to know. And then the guy was like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. I was like, okay, room. So let's workshop this. What's our best excuse to get this guy out of work tomorrow? And then classic Rockford, 4 people in a row were like something about shitting your brains out. Like one woman was like, you're shitting too hard. You can't stop shitting. You have diarrhea. This and that. And like, what is wrong with Rockford? Like, are you all okay? Like, what? Like, do you all have IBS? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to ride the room. You got to go with what's happening in the room. Luckily, in Weiner Patrol, I wasn't heckled or anything, so I didn't have to respond to anybody. But yeah, I've been quick on my feet. Fun fact, though, little behind the scenes fun facty for you. When I spilled the water and I got to that joke about like when I die, the papers will call me an up and coming comic. That's a joke that I have. It's part of another bit. Yeah, like I had a very small bit about why hasn't there been like a school shooter but at an open mic? Like, why hasn't anybody shot up an open mic? And what'll happen is like, they'll shoot, they'll kill everybody, and we'll all be like, I see the light, and then everyone will call us an up and coming comic. So like that was part of another joke. So a friend of mine, like who's much more experienced in comedy, was like, yeah, if you can respond to something happening in the moment with a joke you've already written, it's a magic trick.
Yeah.
Because the audience thinks you just came up with that hilarious thing to say, but you're just like going through the little Rolodex in your head of all of your shit. Like, what fits here right now? Oh, I have something for that. And then you just plug it in and you just go.
Yeah.
And that's knowing your material.
Yeah, that's great. That was, and I would not have known that was not an ad lib.
I mean, technically it was.
It was, yeah, but it was
an ad lib that I had already written.
Yeah, a written ad lib. So that was that's really good. Now, you've been working really hard for 3 years. What type of goals have you set for yourself, and what are you doing to achieve those?
Well, okay, so my goal the year that I did Weiner Patrol was to headline. That was my goal. I just want to headline. I want to do a long set on stage. So I did that. After Weiner Patrol, my next goal was festivals. I wanted to cut it up into clips, submit it to festivals. And my goal was to apply to 5 festivals. I think I ended up applying to like 8 or something. And then I wanted to get into at least 1. And I got into 4. And I did those 4. And now my goal, now that I've done all that, I want to do more road stuff. So now I've met people in other states and other places, and I want to travel a little bit more and perform in more states. I've expanded my states, this year, which has been awesome. And I got to feature for a couple like kind of bigger names, which is kind of cool. So any opportunity like that, of course, I'd love to do, but I would like to travel a little bit more.
Okay.
So it's like a short-term goal. I don't really have any long-term goals. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a trap. If you're like, I want to get, famous. Like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know. I would love to be able to live a comfortable lifestyle making money from doing just comedy. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? I don't know. Maybe I don't know, but I want to get better. That's a big goal. I want to get good. I want to get really good. I want to practice doing a lot of different kinds of rooms. I want to get better at crowd work. I want to get better at writing. I want to write, like I was saying earlier, more stuff that's not necessarily so personal or necessarily like, this is a dude I fucked. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I want to travel. I want to write more and write better. And I want to just, I don't know, I want to host a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
That's a goal. Yeah. Short term, I think short term goals are appropriate for
Cool.
where I'm at
Yeah,
right now.
that makes sense. How do you critique yourself when you do a set and break it down and decide if first of all if a joke should live or die, and second, performance wise, what could you have done better? What did you do good? Do you do that? Do you do like a post game type thing?
Oh yeah. Yep. I record everything, whether it's just an audio record or a video. I try to video as much as I can so I can see myself, so I can see, if I'm like touching my face too much or my hair, or,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Because I was the captain of my speech team in high school. So I'm there are a lot of very specific rules in the speech team world about how to, like, you have to stand there and then you have to move there and then you have to do this. And so I try to make sure I don't do that because it's very unnatural. And so I just want to, so I watch myself and first I'm like, okay, am I watchable? Do I look like I'm having fun up there or do I look nervous?
Uh-huh.
Do I look like I'm scared of the room or do I look like I'm confident and in control? So there's that. I absolutely critique myself mercilessly. I don't think I'm funny at all. I think I'm like, oh, that sucked. And everyone's like, oh, I was great. I'm like, no, it was not. It was very bad. That one joke did not land. So it was a bad set.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I I always listen and I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that tag. What is, oh, nah. I
Yeah.
forgot to do that punchline. I forgot that bit, or I forgot the second half of this joke, or I did it in a weird order. Why did I do that? So yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And in terms of what was your other question? Do I critique myself? What was your
Oh,
other question?
decide if a joke lives or
Oh,
dies.
great question. So a lot of jokes. So I did a lot of open mics. I haven't been able to do as many open mics as often because I'm either dead tired after work or I'm on a show.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't gotten to do that. But open mics, I'll try out a new joke or new bit. If it works at the mic, which is usually a room full of other comics, maybe there's potential. I've got a nice little suite set up for myself where I run 2 weekly shows. One is in a bar and one is at the Lincoln Lodge, and that's a later show.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always perform on the later show, but I'm there as much as possible. And I perform on it at least twice a month, whether I'm hosting or on an actual spot on it. So like next week I'm hosting. So there'll be like I'll do 5 or 6 minutes at the top and I'll just kind of introduce the show and do a little, crowd work or maybe try a new bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the weekly show I host at the bar, whether I'm hosting or just doing a spot on it, I always give myself like 8 to 10 minutes. And so that's where I try out a lot of new material because there's usually a regular crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a balance of trying a joke in a room full of comics, trying a joke in a couple different rooms full of different kinds of comics at different open mics, and then trying it out in like a low stakes show, like my goofy little bar show, try it out there. If it bombs, whatever, who cares? And then eventually I might try it out in like a higher stakes room, like a Zanies or like a Laugh Factory or like a booked show or something.
Uh-huh.
And if the joke is doing well in kind of all of those places, I'll try it, especially if it's like a riskier joke, like if it's really dirty or really dark or really blue or whatever. I'm always hesitant to try that kind of stuff, but like last night at the pizza parlor, I tried a lot of new stuff
Uh-huh.
because I was like, I'm doing 30 minutes, I've got time. I had just done 40 minutes the night before and I tried a couple new things, but that was a little more, it was a little less loose. So I wanted to keep it a little tighter and keep it a little bit more professional. So I did more of like the greatest hits. And I did a little bit of new stuff and a little bit of crowd work, but at this show last night, I was like, yeah, we're going to change it up. So I didn't do bits that I almost always do. I didn't even touch them. And I opened with a bit I've never opened with, that I'm not even like 100% with. And it was definitely a fuck around kind of night. Cause like, where else are you going to do it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
You've
you
got nothing to lose. You got nothing to lose at a place like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked out, and I ended on a really good note. So I did my time, the audience was entertained, which is all you can ask for. So the producer was happy. And I never want to disappoint anybody. So I never want to like ruin a room. That's certainly not the goal. And that's really scary too, to like try a newer bit in like a real room where it's like, if this doesn't work, you feel like you're letting down the person who booked you, you're letting down the other comics, you're letting down the audience. They came here to laugh, and you're on stage and you didn't make them laugh. That sucks.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard balance, but I try to do new stuff. I try to rotate material pretty often.
Do you have like a specific criteria on when you just need to put a joke back and maybe revisit it?
Consistently. I have 3 bits right now that I'm thinking of, that I'm like, actually 4 or 5, that they're okay. They're good premises. They're okay. And there's some funny jokes within those bits, but I've snuck them into longer sets recently, and they just don't get the pop that I think they should. And I'm like, all right, I gotta shelf this. And some of those bits I've already shelved. Like I had like one of them I wrote over the summer, and I was doing it at mics and doing it at mics, and then I started doing it in sets, and then it just wasn't doing great, so I put it on the shelf. And then like maybe 2 months ago, I was like, oh, here's a good tag for that bit that I shelved. So I took it off the shelf and I started doing it again, and it was doing okay. And now, like after last night, I'm like, maybe that one goes back on the shelf again and we'll come back later.
Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced the same thing. And that's a good segue into our new segment that I don't have a sounder for yet, but it's called, Is This Anything? And this is where we're both going to bring something to the table that we've tried, we've written, and we don't know if it's anything or not. And since you're the guest, I'm going to let you decide who goes first.
Get ready, because Scott's is taking over Daylight Saving Time. It's such a big event that we're calling it Day-Long Saving Time. And now it's got real savings. In fact, it's the biggest deals of the year. Audacious? Absolutely. So don't wait. Stock up early and you'll be able to save up to $20 on Scott's Triple Action and Easy Seed products today at the Home Depot and Lowe's. Offers available March 9th through 22nd at select U.S. stores while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See store for exact offers.
Why don't you go first?
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
So this one is written, has never been said out loud, and I don't feel like I have a punchline for it. It's one of those that you talked about that has a great premise, but I don't think I've got anything that punches it. So get right into it. I bought cologne for the first time in 40 years. I'm not trying to attract anyone. I just walked out of the kitchen and back into the kitchen because I forgot something and got a whiff of old man smell. You know that smell. It's mothballs and Bengay. I don't use either, but that's old man smell, and that's what I have. I'm not ready for that yet, so cologne. That's what I got.
Okay.
So,
all right. Interesting.
It obviously does not have a punch, and I don't know how to end that so that it really has a good punch to it.
I mean, I like the description of the two kind of smells, like your little analogy, it smells like this or this. I mean, let's see. So you pick cologne. So like cologne, I associate as like a young man on the town trying to get laid, right? And so he's got his like Armani cologne, like his fancy, cologne. and you're like this older guy and you're like, do I just like wear deodorant and like call it a day? Like, am I an Old Spice guy? Is that my scent? Am I here to smell like your grandpa? Like, do I want to breathe the smell of familiarity, or do I want to get these girls wet? You know, like, do I want them to take a whiff and be like, is that a fuck boy? Is that a fuck boy smell? No, that's a grandpa. What is happening? Am I attracted to old men? Like, I want to make young women question their porn preferences.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's what I want. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So instead of leaning away from trying to attract people, lean into it more. And
Well, yeah, I think the root of comedy is like you're talking about stuff that we think about, but we don't say out loud.
uh-huh.
So to just be like, oh, I want to smell good. It's like, well, yeah, everybody wants to smell good.
Uh-huh.
But why do you want to smell good? Because you want people to be attracted to you. You want people to want to fuck you.
Uh-huh.
That's what it is. It's reptilian, you know.
Right.
You don't
Right.
want to just smell good just for you. Who is that for? You don't care. It's for them. And why is it for them? Because you want them to be like, huh, okay, you know?
Yeah. He's old, but he doesn't smell old. So it might be better to start with the fact that I caught a whiff of old man smell and then go
You were
in.
just like, ugh, I don't want to fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Gross.
Uh-huh.
Like, that's funny if you're like, I don't want to fuck that old man.
Yeah.
But if he smelled like he was wearing a polo and boat shoes, maybe now I'm in my 50s, 60s. I'm not sure your age, but I'm where I'm at.
Uh-huh.
And maybe I'd experiment with my sexuality. I don't know. He was a good smelling dude.
Yeah. That actually works because I normally wear a polo shirt when I perform, and I've got a stupid joke up top that I say I'd like to thank the sport of polo for providing the shirts I wear most of the time. So that it would almost be a callback.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good. Well, those are great notes, and I do think I'm going to turn that back on its head and start with the fact that I'm aware of the old man smell, and the reason why I'm going to do something about it is because I still want to be attractive. So yeah, so I like that. I'll do some homework. I'll do some homework and submit an essay to you when I'm done with it.
Perfect. And you're married too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what's great about that too is that now you get to do the very relatable moment where you're like, well, I want to seem fuckable,
Uh-huh.
but like I am married. Like I'm not trying to fuck, but I still want people to want to fuck me.
Yeah.
Because that's all we're doing. I'm in a relationship, but I fucking wear makeup and a low cut shirt on stage because, like I'm not like, oh, this is only for my man. Like, no, I want you to be attracted to me. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I don't want you to like rape me about it or anything, but like, I want you to want to a little bit,
Yeah. This is good. I'm actually glad I started this. So I actually conferred with another comedian from Canada that I respect a lot, and I said that after 130 episodes or whatever I've got of the show, I feel like that the thing that is missing is there's a lot of the feedback I get is I just want to learn how to write jokes. And so I guess if we do this, then we're going to learn a little bit more about the process and how something starts out not so good, and then you can turn it into something gold. So I'm glad we're doing this. Okay, it's your turn.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out a bit about like I dated a lot in my 20s. I hooked up a lot of dudes in my 20s because I was like looking for love, and now like I'm in this relationship, but I do, put myself out there and everything. And I get these dudes who like there was a point in my 20s where I stopped caring. And I was like, no, I don't give a shit if you like me or not anymore. I don't care if you call me back. I don't care. It's like, it's whatever. And that's when those dudes started like becoming obsessed with me. So I was like, and they still hit me up like 4 years later. I'm still getting texts and DMs like, I miss you. I think about you still. I'm like, why? Fucking why? So I was trying to write a bit that's kind of like, ladies, I can't tell you how to find love, but I can tell you how to make a man obsessed with you. Like, I can't help you, get married and find the love of your life. But if you want a stalker, I got you. Like, and I had a couple stalkers at one point, which is why I go by Ariel Julie instead of my actual last name, which is secret.
Okay.
Because I had stalkers and I didn't want them to find me when I started doing comedy.
Right.
And I also had a bit about, I never really did it on stage. It's sort of just been a premise that was like, I had this stalker and it was scary. Of course it's scary. And I remember going to the police at one point and being like, I have this stalker and it's, he keeps calling me. He said he's been driving by my house. I'm really scared. Is there anything, can I file a restraining order? Is there anything I can do? And the police were like, well, has he ever hurt you? And I was like, no. And they're like, has he ever threatened to hurt you? And I was like, no, he wants to marry me. In fact, he wants to, not hurt me. And they're like, well, we can't give you a restraining order against somebody who hasn't threatened to hurt you. I'm like, yeah, but what if he does hurt me? Like, so you're basically saying, yeah, once he kills you, then we'll be like, you're right. You were right about that.
Yeah.
Like, what do I? So I've never figured out like how to make that concise and like, jokey. But something about like stalking and having a stalker and like navigating that, I kind of would like to make that funny if I can.
Yeah.
But that's a tough. It seems tough.
Up top on that, one of the things that came into my head is, ladies, I can't tell you how to find love, but I can tell you how to build a stalker. Something that just really hits and gets to it right away. I can tell you how to build a stalker or create a stalker or something like that. That jumped into my head. And on the when you're trying to file a restraining order, it's like, okay, did he hurt you? Did he threaten to hurt you? And they're like, at the point where they say we can't file a restraining order, just, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, he stabbed me.
oh, that's kind of funny. I gotta kind of invent something that happened. Like, no, he did hit me. No, I mean, I thought I deserved it, but maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a problem. Yeah. Oh my God. You know what? I'm so stupid. He like totally hurt me.
Yeah.
And this is all, I'm really good at makeup. I've got a tutorial.
Yeah.
So like you can't hear it, but it's only because of True Blend cover up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm an influencer. Yeah.
I'm actually an influencer and I'm really good at my job. Like, and I can't take the makeup off to show you because it's long lasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do we do?
But then you could actually take it further and they say, well, this doesn't call for a restraining order. We're going to arrest this guy. And then you say, well, he didn't hit me that hard and he might have just slipped, or
maybe he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Two different kids by two other women. You can't take their shitty dad away.
Yeah. He's a good guy. He's just not good for me. And
he's Mr. Wrong, but he's Mr. Right for someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe. No, he was insane. He was a crazy person.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I did the world a favor by like putting him on notice. Because like, he had dick piercing. He had a dick piercing. Like, you don't want that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't great.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
What? When I already have a bit about dick piercing, so
yeah.
So, all right, maybe all of this could tie in together. That's not bad. That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we should both do our homework and then submit a clip to each other when we finally do it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, man, it's really been nice getting to know you, and I think that I really respect the fact that you are going for it, and I also respect the fact I've had two friends that are speech pathologists that are also in entertainment, and I know the rigors of doing what you do during the day, and the fact that you are trying to balance all that's a lot.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and yeah, I just think you're going to do great, and keep doing it, because I do bookmark a lot of these clips and shows and stuff like that, and I watch them, and then I delete that bookmark and never think of that person again. So just so you know, you made the cut.
I've been told by many an ex hookup that I am in fact quite memorable.
Yeah.
So I'll take it.
Yeah, you're good. So where can folks find you? What do you have going on? And as far as the socials and shows and stuff like that coming up?
Sure. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Ariel_Julie_comedy, or you could just type in Ariel Julie comedy. That'll come up. Same as YouTube. You can go to my YouTube, Ariel Julie comedy. That's where you can see Weiner Patrol and a bunch of other clips. Or you can go to my Linktree. I think it's just linktree.com/Ariel Julie, and that'll have all the links to, I think my Twitter is like at the Ariel Julie, but I never post. So, I mean, you can follow me, but it's whatever. I guess you can friend me on Facebook. Maybe don't. If we really don't know each other, just follow me. Just follow me. You don't need to be my friend on Facebook. Just follow me. For those of you who are a bit more salacious, I do in fact have an OnlyFans. So if you would like to subscribe, it's
Somebody's making brunch.
Somebody's decided that now is a really good time to open every single package we own. I'm kidding. No, that is my boyfriend. He's taking out the recycling like I asked him to. He's being a very good boyfriend right now. Just a little noisy. Love you. As I was saying, you can see pornography on onlyfans.com/Ariel Julie.
Excellent. Well, it's been really great getting to know you, and like I said, I think you're one of those that are going to do well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun this morning.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.